Um, if I were Morgan Spurlock, the mainstream media would love me and I'd have a show on HBO. Dana. Unfortunately, the McDonald's or the meat packing facility of my muckraking existence is the mainstream media. And I discovered the mainstream. I describe in the book that I was a default liberal growing up in West Los Angeles. I listened to alternative rock on K-Rock, and I just went to movies all the time. Once I got into college, I drank a lot, studied very little, and I graduated with less skills than when I went to college. And the seeds of my epiphany towards embracing conservatism was my father saying, "We're no longer paying for your absurd lifestyle," and the thing that really got me upset the most was I thought that, why do I have to buy my own shoes? Why do I have to pay my own rent? I thought that when I worked, it was for CDs and entertainment. And when he cut me off, he actually really meant it, and I had to get a real job. And I believe that walking for the first time in shoes that I bought started ultimately my path towards conservatism. But I didn't know what conservatism was in Los Angeles. I'm not the only one. This is a parenthesis in my impromptu speech. There's a book coming out that's a lot better written than my book is. No offense, Andrew. By David Mamet, that I got sent by Penguin, called the Secret Knowledge on the Dismantling of American Culture. Get it when it comes out. He has come to the same conclusions that I have come to, reluctantly. The same ones as Dennis Miller, the same ones as David Horowitz. And we are the apostates, Whittaker Chambers. We are the apostates. We are the ex-smokers who are furious when we see somebody lighting up. And so our outrage when we see liberalism in its hypocritical display, we're the ones who get the most outrage. And by hypocritical display, in my book I talk about, it's not that their economic stuff that makes me so angry, though it does. It's the cultural Marxism on the left that drives me crazy. The cultural Marxism that, in the guise of American studies at Tulane University, where I thought I was going to be reading Mark Twain and other great literary figures, I was inundated with rape lit my freshman in advanced freshman English. It was just, one book of victimhood after the other. I didn't even know what it was. I just was depressed. I'm like, is there a book that does not have haikus about rape? I don't want to read about rape anymore and oppression. It was so unbelievably depressing, but I didn't even know what it was. And when I graduated, and I started to realize that I graduated with less skills than I had entered, and the head of the American Studies department, who I liked a lot, sent me a survey when I was kind of figuring out that I was unemployable after college. What do you think of your American Studies degree? And I had so much free time that I actually started to read the books in greater detail than the first four pages of the chapter. You know how you would do that, like before you got into a class. And I go, who's Herbert Marcuse, and who's Theodore Adorno, and who's Antonio Gramsci, however they're pronounced, or Horkheimer. And I started to look into who these people were, and what's this word deconstruction, and what's repressive tolerance, and what did these guys try to do? This is my Glenn Beck conspiracy, Dana, in the book. This is my billboard in my head of what happened to American society, how a country that fought so valiantly against Marxist ideas when they were aimed at the economic pillar of American society. They failed because middle-class American values worked. People came here with a nickel in their pocket, and they'd say, "Hey, look, the boss is a really bad guy. We need to bond together and take down the owner." They go, no, I've got a widget that I'm working on that's going to make it so that we can make 20, things instead of 40 things, and I think I'm going to be able to create a company based upon it. The left was never able to be victorious in its argument. Sure, there was a battle out there, but America was not really susceptible to the arguments of economic Marxism. But the cultural Marxists, and especially Gramsci, came up with an interesting idea. Where there was Marxist-Leninist thought, which was the revolutionary impulse, there was this idea of gradualism. Gradualism meant that we can kind of do this thing bit by bit and think of this as the long march through the institutions. And the cultural Marxists from the Frankfurt School, those people that I mentioned, figured out it's the cultural institutions that we need to walk through the front door and take them over. And they did it to academia. The post-structuralist model is what it's why our children come back from Thanksgiving after you hugged them and you gave them a stereo and bought them the little cool refrigerator and they said, I love you, Mom, I love you, Dad, it's a great thing, and they come back saying, why are we having Thanksgiving? Mom and Dad, you're oppressing Native Americans. It's why we have Whole Foods. We can't just buy crap that we like. We have to be reinforced that we're saving the world while we're buying that I don't know, name of expensive bread. Or prosciutto, expensive focaccia, and you can put it together and put arugula on. It's delicious. So anyway, that became my conspiracy theory, in essence, that the left translated economic Marxists from the haves versus the have-nots, the owner class versus the workers, to the oppressor and the oppressed. And they hit that every single day of our lives. It's the theme of my book about why the Tea Party is attacked as being racist. Oppressor, oppress, oppressor, oppressed. You can't go on a TV show as a Republican. I was on Joy Behar the other night, and Stephanie Miller. I'm telling you, Joy was nice to me. Joy was a joy this time. But, and I liked her. I'm willing to like these people. I treat reporters, Dana, as individuals. I think that the entire racket stinks to high hell in its use of objectivity and neutrality as the cudgel. To pretend that you're neutral when you're not is the number one tool that the left uses in the media. Rush Limbaugh admits he's conservative. So does Sean Hannity. Just admit that you're liberal. Like God send Keith Olbermann and God send Rachel Maddow. I don't have a problem with those people. I don't. Because at least they're honest. At least the Huffington Post was honest about where it was coming. I created it, by the way. I went on the Joy Behar show, and they said, Alan West racist. Why? Because he said something about, Muslims. I said, Islam isn't a race. But it's racism. The Tea Party is racist. What do you mean? What did they do? Oh, we have evidence that the Tea Party is racist. MSNBC's Contessa Brewer pointed out when she showed a photograph of a man whose head was cut off holding a gun, implying that the Tea Party was racist and violent, and that nobody should leave their house and protest because dissent no longer is patriotic. And lo and behold, these evil bloggers who don't have enough fact checkers and don't have enough editors to protect us from ourselves found out that missing head was a black man, a black Tea Partier. And my big revelation was Clarence Thomas hearing. So race was the beginning for me. I was super politically correct. Will you be my friend, sir? Will you? I wanted a black friend so bad. You have no idea. When I was liberal, I did. And then George Bush said, like, the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. I was like, yeah, that made so much sense to me. And the Clarence Thomas hearings was clarifying for me. That was like the moment. I didn't have perspective at that point, but that was the moment that I realized that I wanted race to be my issue. When I saw that Clarence Thomas was the alignment of the press, the feminists, Eleanor Smeal and Patricia Schroeder walking up earnestly, and Peter Jennings, Dan Rather, like, ooh, this is the most serious thing we've ever discussed in the history of the world. And I was pro-choice back then, and I understood, even in my shallow liberalism, that I understood that the subtext of this entire thing was the abortion debate. I wasn't that dumb. When I saw that they were willing to invade his privacy to start grilling him on whether or not he rented pornography simply to embarrass him, to show that he's human and has a human flaw, and that the people who were grilling him were Caucasian, privileged, and in the case of Ted Kennedy, the dictionary definition of workplace sexual harassment. I started to go, okay, I was rooting to take this guy down, and then when I heard people, when I saw the "I believe Anita Hill" bumpers, I believe Anita, I believe Anita what? That in 6 years of work, or 6 or 5, I didn't fact check it, but in working with him for years and years and years, she went job to job to job, rose through the ranks, got raises, and the worst thing that ever happened was he said that there was a pubic hair on a Coke can. I said, if you worked with me by lunchtime, something worse is going to be said. But I'm not Bill Clinton, who within 1 year became the standard bearer of the Democratic Party a year after the year of the woman, where sexual harassment was defined by pubic hair on a Coke can. Clarence Thomas woke me up, and the Bill Clinton thing got me angry. And I started to figure out what the hell just happened, because I was starting to ask questions and think impure thoughts for Brentwood, where I'm from. OJ's Brentwood. Parenthetically, one of the nicest guys. And he and Marcus Allen were the coolest guys in the world. So it was devastating for us when O.J. Simpson did what he did. I don't know why I told you that, but he was weirdly, he was like the mayor. He just walked around and like he'd catch your eye and he'd go, come on over, let's talk. I'm like, that's so cool. The Jews just talk to me. Marcus Allen, do you know, this is another aside, I'm sorry. It's not Marcus Allen. I was sitting, do you ever see in the NFL, they have the United Way ads where they show NFL guys standing over kids, offering them help with their Spanish or something, and like, when does that happen? I was sitting at Maria's studying for my driver's test when I was 15 years old, and Marcus Allen tapped me on the shoulder and said, what are you doing? I said, I'm studying for my driver's test. And he put his hand on my shoulder and helped me with my driver's test. I literally had a United Way NFL experience. My battle is with what I call the Democrat media complex. I think that the solution, and we're moving towards it, and we're just in a feisty adolescent phase of this new reality, is the British newspaper model. I read The Guardian and the UK, the Guardian and the Independent in the UK, and it's a left-of-center. They're left-of-center publications. Sometimes the Mother Jones or the Nation magazine, with their monofocus on corporations as the society's ills, comes up with some doozies. And I know that it's left-of-center, but good reporting is good reporting. I'm much more comfortable in a world. Dana, for a period of time, were you an objective journalist? Because now it seems like you've come out as you're a biased journalist, like you're coming from a left-of-center point of view. Did you make like an overt transition? That's just my personal perception. I'm not trying to isolate you for mockery. I'm just asking you.
Should I have a rebuttal period?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm an op-ed columnist now.
That's right. But back when you were the objective neutral journalist, there's not a person in humanity who thought that you were that you didn't have a point of view, that you didn't have.
Everybody has a point of view.
That's right. I'm totally comfortable with that. And there's maybe 3 journalists that I've ever dealt with that don't have a point of view. I don't care if people are left of center. This may not be the best utopia for journalism, but it is where we are going right now, is where people get to be honest about it. But what's going on out there is just so brutal. This is the last stand of the Democrat media complex. You know, Katie Couric's soft firing is a victory for people who have been fighting against the Democrat media complex. Katie Couric has always been biased the other way while trying to pretend to be otherwise. She selectively edited her Sarah Palin interview for the same reasons that Tina Fey, did what she did to Sarah Palin. What the NAACP did to Clarence Thomas by not defending him is the same thing that that Katie Couric and Tina Fey did to Sarah Palin. They needed women to deliver the fatal blows to her as she rose in popularity the day after Barack Obama did his Invesco speech. They saw that this woman had a pop culture appeal, and they had to destroy her, and it started on day one. And yesterday, Wonkette went to unbelievable new lows in terms of mocking Trig Palin. That's a continuum. This isn't an aberration. It's a continuum that Sarah Palin, her children are on limits, and President Obama's are off limits. The contradiction is the double standard, the hypocrisy that's laid down by the mainstream media. Since I have an opportunity, because I probably don't have that much time, I'm going to transition to my big issue. I said it's race. It's the oppressor-oppressed thing. My big takeaway from the Clarence Thomas thing, and why I'm now starting to advocate for the Herman Cain, Allen West, Herman Cain ticket, is that the only way to defeat political correctness and cultural Marxism and multiculturalism is to aim it straight at its head. And I believe that Herman Cain is a good and decent man, and I believe that small business is in this country is the embodiment of what the problem is in this country, is that the government is at war with small business, and he understands small business. Allen West, national security. So it's not just a novelty ticket, but we have to defeat political correctness. We have to defeat the Democrat media complex's reflexive use of race in order to, as a cudgel to use against conservatives, which intimidates good people from standing up, running for office, becoming media figures because they're fearful of being called a racist, a sexist, or a homophobe. It's my big issue. So last year, in defending the Tea Party, starting with the Contessa Brewer smear, just an act of malicious media at its worst, the Tea Party is this juggernaut. It's hurling forward, and the Democratic Party is about to face a Monday after the Sunday in which they voted on the health care bill, with the Tea Partiers set to protest on Capitol Hill on Saturday, the day before the vote. And I start seeing tweets saying that that Barney Frank was called a negative word for being gay. And I heard that members of the Congressional Black Caucus were called the N-word. I'm like, well, that sounds horrible. They finally got what they've been looking for. What do you mean by that they've been looking for? CrashTheTeaParty.org. What was CrashTheTeaParty.org? It was created because they wanted to create the perception that the Tea Party was racist. And when they couldn't get it, they tried to manufacture it. And people would go to the Tea Party's coffee party people dressed as Paul Revere, but holding a noose or acting like they're a Nazi. And an interesting thing about selective editing, John Podesta's operation, think Progress, took a video that featured a Tea Party person escorting out one of the fake Nazis. But they cut out the escorting out part. They just showed a fake Nazi in order to create the perception that the Tea Party abides by Nazis. I consider this behavior evil. That's why I war with these people. I consider what John Podesta did evil. That's why I war with him. And Eric Bullard, they enabled this type of stuff. And so I knew going into that Saturday that there would be a Monday after their non-bipartisan bill passing, that the Tea Party would now have the biggest possible moment of more and more and more people jumping into the Tea Party. Not just the middle age, not just labradoodles with American flag shirts around them, not just people who have Ben Franklin outfits in their closet, but just more Americans saying enough is enough. And I knew that they were going to do something, and I didn't know what it was. And when I saw on Twitter that this was happening, I got so suspicious. I go, I don't believe it, I don't believe it, I don't believe that the Tea Party would do the very thing on this day, at this level, going after Barney Frank, going after the Congressional Black Caucus. Why would they give them this gift? And then I started to do research when I found out that Nancy Pelosi was walking through the crowd with an incredible shrinking woman gavel, like 10 times larger, okay? And then you had, I started to, that was an hour after Congressman Carson said to a reporter, and we have the audio, oh, yeah. We walked out of the Cannon House step buildings, yes. And a mob of 400 people gathered around us, 400. And they started to hurl the N-word 15 times by 15 people. Like, oh, really? Yeah, absolutely. It was a mob. We thought that they were going to throw stones. It was a page out of a time machine, he said. I don't even understand that metaphor. And he said the police caught wind of it and they got us out of there. Okay? That's a descriptive thing, don't you think? That's really like, that sets an image in your head, a page out of a time machine. I can envision that page in a time machine. And Li Feng said, I was standing over there, I knew something was going on. And then McClatchy Papers said, oh yeah, it absolutely happened. And Emmanuel Cleaver said, yeah, I was there. And then John Lewis asked about it, said, I've gone through terrible times. So you could tell that Carson overplayed his hands. Because Barney Frank is slimy, S-L-M-I-M-Y. Barney Frank is slimy, but he's smart, he's clever. Nobody could disprove that he was called a faggot once. And so it was like, that sucked. I would have punched that guy in the nose. Go, what are you thinking, you idiot? You idiot? And I think the Tea Party people would have done that. So I don't believe Barney Frank had that experience. And I do know that paranoid-looking Jesse Jackson Jr. was not looking for family photos to look for 20 years ago. I was at the historic sign-in, and I decided not to walk under the comfortable confines of the Capitol. I wanted to be with my fellow citizen who disagreed with me. He went looking for a YouTube moment that would go viral, and none of them got it, and Congressman Carson made it up. He lied, and the mainstream media abided by it. And I started to put together the pieces, the big gavel, the stupid over-description of an event that didn't happen, where no Capitol policeman said that this happened. No videotape emerged during that period of time. And I said, I'm calling bullshit on this. And I offered $100,000 for any video that showed not once, not 15 times, once. And you know what happened? They shut up. They go, yes, it happened. It was the worst thing that ever happened in the world. George Stephanopoulos, oh my God, the Tea Party, they're the worst people that ever happened in the history of the world. We're racist. We knew they were racist, but it happened. It happened. It finally happened. That meme died when I offered the $100,000. It died. But then Jesse Washington of the Associated Press called me up and made the argument that the absence of video does not mean the event didn't happen. You people! It freaked me out, and I was like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do here? And so I said, okay, let's find the video. Let's find it. And we found 4 videos from the exact space that Carson said it happened, the exact space that Jesse Washington said that it happened. 4 videos, and you see them walking out of the Cannon House step buildings. Congressmen Carson and Lewis. And walking a beat behind them, checking his cell phone, is Caucasian American John Shattuck, former Republican congressman from Arizona. And they walked briskly down the steps. And it didn't happen. Period. I have 4 videos that prove that members of Congress lied, and the mainstream media abided by it. And the mainstream media will not show those videos because the narrative is too important to them. They need to destroy the Republican Party and the conservative movement based upon the issue of race. Now, do you know why I want to bring Herman Cain and Allen West into this? Herman Cain did not, Allen West and Tim Scott won, not because of black support, because of white Tea Party support. They had historic wins. Imagine being a black candidate where you're not a Democrat. The only way to win is to have absolute Tea Party conservative support, and they won, despite the mainstream media insinuating these people are Uncle Toms. My revelation as a hippy-dippy party boy who just wanted everybody to get along kumbaya style in LA, who had the shallowest form of indoctrination you could possibly have, all I wanted was people to get along. I'm from Rodney King, Los Angeles, okay? I do not abide by liberalism that embraces a multiculturalism that pits white people against black people, Hispanics against white people, gays versus straights for political gain. I do not abide by a liberalism that tells a black person or a Hispanic or a gay person that they can't be a conservative. That's where I come from. That's my battle. Am I a journalist? I don't care. I don't care what your definition is of what I do. The media, that's their big deal. Are you a journalist? You're an activist. I go, well, the stuff I've reported is reporting. But when I get so pissed off that the mainstream media is acting in bad faith and many times in an evil fashion, I'm sorry if sometimes I get angry. That's what I do. I'm happy to have this book out. I'm not doing this for the money. I have a mortgage. And I have 2 house payments. A mortgage and 2 car payments. The last 2 years have been brutal. I've been called a racist more times than you can possibly imagine, when my entire reason for being is to end racism and to make it so that black people and Hispanics in this country have the freedom to think like they want to think. So I'm going to continue doing what I'm going to do. And the good part about what I do is I'm a Pied Piper. And I like to find other people who feel the same way, who are righteously indignant like I am. And we're living the most exciting times right now. It's the most exciting times in the history of media, where every single person in this country can't just have a Drudge Report front page with links, but that you have the ability to record history and to go against the narrative. And people are doing it, and it's having an effect on our participatory democracy. The problem is the people reporting on this very exciting time in media are people like Katie Couric who are losing their jobs because they're not doing their jobs. So I'm going to go start taking out more media people, metaphorically. And that's it. Thank you.